Hello and welcome to the 31st episode of the podcast Historians in Conversation, which is hosted by the University of Lodz in Poland. My name is Michael Green and I welcome you to my podcast. My guest today is Dr. Kyriakos Papoulidis from the University of Adam Mickiewicz in Poznań. Dr. Papoulidis is interested in Italian and Greek history and focuses on writings of Italians and Greeks in the early modern and modern context. But today the conversation will be revolving not around his scholarly interests in history, but about his interest in history as such, and the way that he established his career as an academic teacher. I welcome you to my podcast, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation. Hello, Kyriakos. I'm very glad to have you here at my podcast, and you are the first Greek person that I'm going to talk to. And it's very exciting because I'm really looking forward to hear your story and to learn more about your motivation to become a historian, I should say a literary historian. So welcome.
Hello, Michael. I would like to thank you for this invitation. It's a pleasure and honor to talk with you.
Thank you very much. And I always start with the very same question about the childhood because as I think myself, but also recently I've read it somewhere, that childhood makes the person. And I would like to ask you about yours, and maybe I should tell to our listeners that you are working currently in Poland, but you are Greek, so I think it makes it even more interesting. So can you tell us a little bit where do you come from?
Yes, of course. I've been born in Thessaloniki during the 70s in a middle-class family. Thessaloniki, for our listeners, is located in northern Greece. I spent almost the totality of my childhood there, where I pursued my secondary education until my graduation. After that, I left the town, so I moved to Paris for university studies.
And can you tell a little bit about your family? What did your parents do? And if you had any siblings?
Yes, a larger family. All my family was living there for years, in Thessaloniki, since the interwar period of the 20th century. My father was a historical expert in a state institution, and my mother, after they came for a long migration to France, to Paris, she started to work. She was working in the administration staff of the French chemical company Rongpulang.
Uh-huh. So just to make clear, so you were born in Greece, and then at some point your family moved to Paris, and there you also went to secondary education.
No, it's exactly the opposite. I'm very sorry.
Okay.
My parents, after a long migration to France from Greece, they returned back. So I've been born in Greece when I spent the totality of my childhood.
Uh-huh. And so your father was actually a historian, if we could say that, because you said he worked for a historical institution. And is it the time where you actually felt some interest in history? Was it through your father?
Somehow the inspiration, yes. Somehow. Because all this environment and climate had an influence on me during my childhood and my school time.
I wonder, what were you reading as a child? What kind of books were available to a Greek kid? And what was popular in the 70s and the early 80s?
To tell you the truth, it was a very nice experience reading. You have to consider that I'm not an exception. I've passed through the classics. That means French and British literature. Walter Scott, with Ivanhoe, Alexandre Dumas, Musketeers and Count Monte Cristo, and Jules Verne, of course, was 80 Days Around the World with Phileas Fogg. Moreover, some Greek authors like Sepharis and the Decalogue calendars. It's a classical of 20th century. But to tell you the truth, there is one very important parameter about readings during childhood. That during secondary education in school, we had to follow one obligation, one rule, let's say, to register ourselves in the school library and to borrow at least by semester 2 books. This was a kind of parameter which helped you to get a better grade, let's say, but also stimulates you, give you motivation in order to know better European literature, the national one, modern Greek, or science.
And maybe just for our listeners, we should set some general context about Greece at the time, and I think that the Greek Revolution was sometime in 1974, if I'm not mistaken, where Greece stopped being monarchy and became republic. And I wonder, was it a tense time during your childhood? Do you remember anything about, not the revolution, but just the aftermath?
Yes, in 74, this is the end of the dictatorship and the beginning of that means the modern times of the Greek, the establishment of the Republic, of the Greek Republic. In 76, just an important time, the establishment of the national language as the national norm, Δημοτική, instead of Katarevousa, and the end of this dispute. And the aftermath is full of influences. That means as a child or a young teenager, it was a very interesting period to grow up during the late 70s and the 80s in Greece for many reasons. First of all, the educational environment was very interesting with so many and different parameters as the quality of the class knowledge. On the other side, we have a practical reason, which was to take an excursion all over the country, one by semester. There is also some reasons which are outside of the educational side. That means a very important influence by multiple external factors, foreign languages. On those time, English was not only a language for learning language, but a language with very important prestige. Actually, it's very commercialized, but in those times was a different impact, let's say. Of course, with French and German, but also other factors as music, cars, cinema, sports.
I wonder, how was it to grow up in Greece, also from the perspective of the Greek history? I haven't been to Thessaloniki, so I don't really know how it looks over there, but when you're traveling around Greece, then you for sure see a lot of Greek artifacts from the classical times. And does it, in your opinion, inspire you to know more about it? But in fact, you are not a historian of ancient Greece. So I just wonder how all those things come together.
This is the kind of historical knowledge which is associated with the national prestige, let's say, and this factor, you have it already since since the school time. You're not exempted of that, and you are living in such an environment. Of course, I'm not a historian of classical time, of classical era, but I have enjoyed the experience to live in such an environment.
But in your opinion, does it something that stimulates this historical thinking when you're living around Greek temples, around speaking the language of maybe not exactly the very same language, but of course it changed over time, but still speaking Greek, in which so many classics are written? Does it build some sort of connection?
Not only connection, this is the heritage that we are somehow not obliged but satisfying to follow and to be integrated in this heritage even in modern times, in actually in technological times. So somehow we are invited to combine this classical heritage with let's say the modernity and the technology.
I think this is really fascinating, and having grown up in Israel, where we also have a lot of artifacts, maybe different ones, but also from different historical periods. I think in a way it does provoke curiosity, and at least for me that was the case. I also was very much interested in literature, but seeing things around me made me want to know a lot more about them than was just written on the little note next to it. So my next question would be about your education, because you mentioned that you finished studies, school in Greece. Can you tell a little bit about, you mentioned briefly about the library, but how was the Greek education built back in the day?
On those time, actually it's a very reformed system, but in its basis it's remained the same. Only in the end, in the final exam of the entrance university exam, you have some basic difference with the past. And comparing to my childhood, actually pupils in Greece, they have more disciplines at school and maybe they are more charged. But getting back to those time, speaking about libraries, let's say the library was complete. We haven't missed anything. On the other time, concerning the education, we had a very good, as I mentioned, quality of information. And somehow, since our school time, I don't say that we have been in maturity. No one is in maturity in 15 or 16 years old. But we have quite enough elements and data to somehow to make a choice for after.
And that's exactly my question. So, during your school years, you were probably already considering what to do next. And then the question is, if you were interested in history already at those late high school stages, in order to decide for an academic study in this domain, or not yet? When did you feel this urge to be engaged with history on a more professional level than just reading very fascinating historical novels?
Yes, concerning this question, let's mention a very important fact which take place during the 80s, during my school time. I've been ranked in the 3rd place concerning a national concourse on our national historiography. More specifically concerning the beginning of the 20th century. This fact stimulates me for the street in order to get involved into any discipline of humanities concerning my studies. I was starting to wondering why not humanities. So this was, let's say, a first stage, some years before the maturity exam, the final exam.
And then you finished your high school, and my question always is about turning points, which is part of actually biographical method, because the idea is that a person has several turning points in his or her life. And I think that such decision where to go to study is one of those turning points. So I wonder what possibilities were standing in front of you.
During this time, the many possibilities were offered. Of course, less than today. But mainly, the important percentage of my generation took the final national exam for the entrance of the university. The Greek system of this time imposed, as today, a double exam. One for the graduation of Lyceum, say, and the second one for the entrance of the university. We have two separate exams. And this is a particularity of the system. So for the entrance, after the graduation of the school, the entrance of the university, the exam of the entrance for the university wasn't very satisfying. We have a big attendance, and just 1/3 of us was accepted.
It's quite a competition.
It was difficult time. We had at least to obtain 17 or 18 to 20 to 4 disciplines. And you can imagine about 1,000 of pupils and students to get into the end in the whole country. That's why the percentage of the entrance was less than the half, less than 50% of the class pupils. So I had on this time to wait 1 year, a whole academic year, in order to repeat one exam. So I decided to take another way, and to follow an alternative solution, and to go to France to take a double exam, a discipline exam and a French language exam in order to get integrated into other studies.
So where were you eventually accepted, into what course of study, and which university?
Yes, it was. I decided to leave for Paris and to study theology. It was in a private theology. It was in a private university, the Orthodox Theological Institute in Paris, and where we have to take and pass to succeed a double exam in French language and in theological material. So that was the choice. I was attracted, as I have said before, by any discipline in humanities. And on this time, in order to not to prevent you find your next question, I was surprised by the very, let's say, the important textual and philological impact on the theological program of studies.
So why theology? Why not history?
Because the environment was well known in Greece from this university, and my father and several colleagues of my father had already followed this path. It wasn't an easy path, but it was a well-known path. So somehow, even from a long distance, we have been acquainted. And the studies in Paris means an active involvement, of course.
How was it for you to move away from family, from parents, into an independent life? I assume it was still at a rather tender age, even if it was a year after school, so you probably were around 19. But, one thing is to move from Thessaloniki to maybe Athens, and another thing is to move from Thessaloniki to Paris. It's quite far away.
Yes, it was a decision of kind of take it or leave it. From this kind of decision, I've never regretted, and I'm very happy to have taken this decision. I've been prepared to such a scenario 1 year before the final exam, so I knew what I was attending for after.
Uh-huh. So that was already a conscious choice earlier that you were preparing for this. So maybe I should ask you then another question. You are a historian of literature, but as you mentioned earlier, you did go to study at the theological faculty. And when did the change occur, and actually why? Why didn't you continue just with the religious studies?
This change of, let's say, path in humanities arrived in the end with my graduation, with my license in theology, when I realized that I was more attracted by this textual side of the humanities than the spiritual experience which theology could offer me. So in the end of my license, I decided to follow and to more philological, to more textual university programs, and to integrate it in another university, public one this time, ep.31, as we said in this era, Paris Third University, and national school, as I say in French, Grand Établissement on this time, the National Institute for Oriental Language in Alco, when I follow a philological program of modern Greek, in license in modern Greek philology, and a master's degree in Mediterranean studies.
So, once you finished the bachelor, and I suppose also the master, because at the time, if I'm not mistaken, it was two combined, bachelor and master study, also in France. What made you continue? Like, you could have found, or actually you could have had a whole career being just a person with a master's degree. You could have worked in an archive or a library or taught at school. What made you want to continue?
Yes, this decision, it wasn't taken after the public defense of my MA. The truth is that in Paris I've met with a very important generation of professors which have the experience of research and of European events. They have lived in '68, and they were originate from let's say from difficult battlefields of the Second World War, like Egypt or Greece. So this experience was very important for me, so I could benefit. Moreover, in Paris we can have all kinds of opportunities concerning research facilities. So it was a very, let's say, important opportunity in order to take it, not to leave it this time.
And afterwards came the time where you had to decide what to do next with your career. How did you make the shift from PhD to, I don't know if you had a postdoc or some sort of position, because this is the most difficult stage. And I mean, from what you told us, you had a rather broad profile because you were interested in several things. But how did you translate all of this experience and knowledge into a job?
Yes, it's exactly those conditions that you have described. I've decided to return back to Thessaloniki, and then by chance, really at random, I've met with a French professor from the French National Center for the Scientific Research, the famous CNRS, who offered me a contract of some years for an employment for a specific research project on which they were working for, and this project was concerning collective memory. It was really by chance, and this is where I'm very, 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 very lucky to this stage.
Collective memory, I think, is a very interesting topic and relevant to many different political and historical situations. So it it was a limited contract.
After this experience, I moved to the local university, the Aristoteles University of Thessaloniki. I've integrated the European program site for 2 years and a half, and this was a different experience because we had focused our research. We have been in a team research there, and we have focused our research to literary movements, especially Enlightenment in Europe, and the research of Greek text and the production of Greek text during this era.
How was it to work in Thessaloniki? In comparison to being abroad when you came back, did you feel more at ease?
I wouldn't say that. It was completely different. Completely different from all kinds of my previous experience. Professional facilities were completely not disorganized, but everything was working on a different way. Time was very, very, very slow. Decisions to be taken were slow. And everything was working different way.
You mean in Greece in comparison to France?
Let's say because I have observed this environment, this function on this level in the Balkan zone also. It's not particular to Greece. Time is very different and it's very slow. We lack of this dynamic changement, or that's where in France or even actually in Poland. This lacks in those countries.
So I wonder, how did you come to Poland? What made you leave Greece and get established here, and how did it happen? Also from the perspective of getting a job in Poland, it's not easy.
I consider that after the end of the project, with the publication of our book, I've gave quite enough in order to change professional environment. So I start to search for a changement. I found an announcement for a lecturer of modern Greek language and literature, someone to get involved in modern Greek studies program. So I decided to reply. They were searching for, in this time, this chair here in Poznań in the Adam Mickiewicz University was vacant, and it was the new studies. It was almost 3 years old. So they were searching, moreover, they were searching for native speakers.
So you were what we call at the right place at the right time.
I would say by chance, at random, I don't know. But maybe some good energy is going around.
Karma.
Yes, as you said.
You know, it's very interesting what you just told us, because through the previous 30 episodes of this podcast, there were different people telling their stories, and what I noticed that most of those who achieved an academic position and got established at the university were those who were planning their career, those who were thinking ahead, thinking forward, and taking all the necessary steps to ensure that they have the highest possible chances of getting a job. What you described today is something that is quite different. And it shows also that there is a possibility that you don't have to plan for everything, but you can still get this academic position, get established as an academic, and pursue your own scholarly interest in the historical disciplines. I think for people who are interested in mathematics or chemistry, it's a bit easier than those of us who are interested in the humanities. So I'm very grateful for the conversation that we had. And I would like to ask you if you have any piece of advice or just some sort of summing up that you could tell to our listeners, especially those who may consider whether to take a job in history or even to study history or to choose something else.
Yes, let's say one thing before proceed to any advice. I'm not a specialist of giving advice to people, but in order concerning my itinerary, I haven't planned anything in advance. Nothing was planned in advance. But being on the right place, on the right time, and met with people, being in following procedures, using facilities, were very important parameters in order to get involved in more and more and more current situation which gives you solutions. The only piece of advice that I can give you to listeners is to listen to your podcast and never give up.
That's an advice that I could have given myself.
If you would prefer a different advice...
No, I mean, it was not to scorn you in any way, but just to say that this is exactly what I would say too. Never give up.
With my colleagues here in Poznań, we are trying somehow to stimulate and to motivate students to take part in the certification exam for the Greek language in all levels, from A1 to C2. This is not a kind of advertisement. And how, if we are observed a kind of psychological blockus or a kind of fear, we consult them to ask for support, to follow all instructions concerning learning procedures, and to get into the procedure, the exam one, to never give back and to never give up, because they had no chance. We have to advance somehow.
Exactly. I completely agree. So I would like to thank you for your time and thank you for engaging in this conversation. Thank you for telling about your life and about your experiences. I think it's very valuable when we have the opportunity to listen to different takes on the same question from different people. So thank you very much, and I wish you a lot of success in the future.
Thank you very much for this invitation. I wish you all the best for your podcast and for your listeners also, and for your career.
Thank you.